Well, I'm usually a guy that will speak his mind, even if it gets me in a little trouble now and then. This video might be one of them. But I gotta say my piece, man. It's a beautiful day and it's windy, so I hope that the dead cat on this microphone does its job. Just got done moving some furniture. I'm dusty. Well, lately there has been a lot of talk about DEI hires, which is hiring people for certain jobs, not really because they are qualified, but because of their sex, their color, or their race. Color and race, is that the same thing? You know what I mean. In other words, they are hiring people that aren't the best fitted for jobs because they have a quota to fill. And this has been going on for a very, very long time. And now I don't mean to upset any women or any other people, but there are just some jobs that should just be left to men. There are jobs that women have been in for many years now that they have no business being in. Okay, you may think different. These are my opinions, okay? Let me have my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm going to give you my opinion. Police officers. Women have no business whatsoever on the streets as a police officer. You know, a lot of things you see happen where there is a woman officer. They cannot handle it. Okay? Women are not physically as strong as men. It's just, that's the truth. That's the way it is. Sometimes women officers are being overpowered by suspects, and sometimes even worse. And it isn't the only job that they're in that they are inadequately prepared for. Now, when I was in the military, there were plenty of women in the military, okay? There are certain jobs in the military that they're good at, that they should be in. And then there's jobs they have no business being in. Now, when I first went in, my very first school was Firefighter Academy. And we had 2 women in my class. My class had, probably 15 people in my class. And it was a 6-week course. One of the women, she didn't make it through because she could not, one of the tests is you have to be able to handle a 2.5-inch charged hose by yourself. And you have to hit targets with it. Well, she grabbed the hose and it was whipping her around. She could not hold it. There was another woman who could, but she was at the bottom of the list, you know, the bottom scores for most of the tests. She had trouble. There's another test where you wear a black mask. You're going into a smokehouse. You're totally blinded. You can't see, and you have to feel around the walls, and you have to find a 250-pound dummy and pull it out. She struggled with that. She she got it out, but barely. And the length of time it took her, they probably wouldn't have survived if it had been a real fire. So physically, she couldn't do what the men could do. And we weren't even, we're 17, 18, 19-year-old kids going to this school. There were some older people, but that was one example. Now they're putting women in combat. They have no business being in combat. They just don't have the right emotions for it. They don't have, it's just not a place for women. And I think a lot of you women will agree with me. There are just certain jobs that a woman should not do. They're also hiring people for quotas because they are a certain color, and which means other people who may be more qualified, well, they can't get the job because somebody less qualified has to be hired because they are a certain color or a certain nationality. And that's wrong. Now, this isn't against anybody of any color or nationality. It's about who is the best person for the job. And clearly, we have seen in the last recent years several occasions, LA fires was one. These people were totally inadequate to have positions that they had. And they were DEI hires. LA, California is very big on that. You have a lot of people in certain jobs just because they have a certain sexual preference, okay? They might be one of them transvestite. Well, they're being considered because they're a transvestite. Get off me, bug, or whatever you was, which is wrong. And a lot of them are big failures at it. Now, you may have the exceptions. There are a lot of women say that are paramedics, certain skills, and they can handle it. But there comes, once in a while, they're going to have something happen to where they wish they was a little stronger, okay? Especially in being a paramedic. Now, they have gurneys and things. They don't really have to do a lot of lifting. So that isn't a bad job for them. But actually being on a fire truck, handling a fire hose, that's why there used to be height limits for these jobs. And a lot of these things were lifted for DEI hires. And I think they're trying to do away with a lot of that, and which is good, because there's just certain things that, and there's certain branches of the military that are fine for women. Navy is a good place for women. Air Force, there are some good-looking women in the Air Force. Let me tell you, I was on an Air Force base. That's where I went to firefighter school. Good look, and they keep them on the first floor in the barracks. You can climb right in their window. Oh, never mind. But yeah, the Air Force has. But they have a lot of jobs that women can do that don't require a lot of physical strength. Having them in the infantry and in combat positions, not the most ideal situation. There's a lot of stress. I mean, men have a hard time. I was not ever in combat. I was in during non-combat times. But I can understand, and I've heard from veterans that have been in combat with them, it's not a popular thing with the male soldiers. I even seen women all branches of the service have certain jobs. They even have, desk jobs. It's just like a base is like a small city. You have jobs in every aspect that you would in civilian life. There are plenty of jobs for women where they don't have to be in combat. And it's usually the headstrong type women, the butchy types, that really want to do what a man can do. The real militant ones. Oh, I can do everything a man can do. Some of them are pretty tough, but they're still not as strong, most of them, they're still not as strong as the weakest male. That's just the way it is. We're bigger physically, we're stronger physically. That's the way we were made. And there are jobs that women just should not be in. They're putting other lives at risk. And you see this a lot in civilian life, certain jobs. Well, I had this in my mind here a minute ago, something I was thinking about. But, well, what I did for a living, I worked in newspaper presses. And just about every major newspaper I worked for, we had at least one, if not two women. And they would hold their own. But it was a career where it was mostly men. Like the Denver Post, man, we had like 150 journeyman press operators, of which I think we only had 2 females. And one was on sick leave for most of the time I worked there. So, they can do the job. It's just not probably the most ideal setting. They took a lot of heat for being female in a male job. It's brutal on a man doing that. When you got 150 men giving each other hell all the time, having a woman there kind of ruins it, man. It ruins the fun. I don't know. But there's so many jobs out there that women have, and there are some that women have completely taken over. And some are fine that they do that. You know, women have changed a lot in the last 50 years. There's women doing jobs that they never would do before. Now, World War II, all the women went to work because there were no men. All the men went off to war. The only men that were in the country were older men or men that were not physically capable of passing the physical exam to get in the military. So most of the factories that were in the country, you know, making the bombs, making everything, the tanks, were built by women. They became welders. They worked on factory lines. My grandmother packed bombs in a factory for World War II. She worked in a factory. I heard her stories all the time on packing bombs. But then the war ended, and, you know, the men went back to work, and things went on as normal. And I guess sometime in the 60s, you know, the movement started again. You know, I'm fine with women doing anything they want to do. But you got to be able to do the job as good as a man. Otherwise, you're taking somebody's job, and whoever hired you is not getting, you know, they're not getting what they expect out of you. I have a big problem with female police officers. It's just they always have this certain attitude that they're better than anybody else. I don't know what it is. To me, yes, they need to be in the office, not on the street. They don't look good in a uniform, for one thing. I don't guess that's the idea, is it? But they don't have any business being a police officer. I know I've been pulled over. The last ticket I got was in Fort Smith. I had my seatbelt on, and this one pulls me over. It was a highway patrol woman. Swore that I did not have my seatbelt on. I was in my red truck. I had a gray t-shirt on, and the seatbelt is gray. I said, ma'am, I had my seatbelt on. I wouldn't lie to you. Now, you did not have it on when you pulled. I was getting gas, and she seen me pull out onto the highway without it. That's what she claimed. I always have my seatbelt on. But rather than to sit there and argue with her, I paid the stinking $50 ticket and was done with it. And that was 10 years ago. I don't know that had anything to do with her being a woman, but I felt if I argued with her, you know, I wasn't going to get anywhere because she had an attitude to begin with. But that's just one job. That and firefighters especially, they don't belong in that. I'm not saying they cannot do the job. I'm sure there are some very good women police officers. I'm sure there's good women firefighters. But it's just always been a man job, a type of, you know. And most of the time, women are the mothers of somebody, and, you know, they risk their lives doing those jobs. I don't know, man. Let me know what you think about it, but there's too many people hired today simply because they're a different color and they have a quota to fill. Their company's got some kind of DEI policy. People should be qualified for any job they're applying for, and they should be able to get hired because of that, not because of what their color is or their sexual orientation or their gender. Why did I just use that word gender? You're a man or a woman. Shouldn't matter. You know, if you're applying for a man type job, you know, you better be able to do the job. And a lot of them cannot. And what that forces these companies to do is keep these people on board because they don't want a lawsuit. They don't want some organization coming after them, which is wrong. And then the company suffers. Not that most people care about these companies today, but your coworkers could suffer. I don't know how many times I've had to work with women that just couldn't keep up with the pace I was doing. They just couldn't do the physical work. They couldn't lift the things that I could lift. And now they could probably lift more than me. I have a hard enough time lifting anything. So But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, guys. This is one that ought to stir things up. But that's just my opinion. You don't have to take it to heart, but that's how I feel about it. Thanks for watching. Happy trails.